Alright, today we're reviewing the Ibanez FRM350, the unusual looking Paul Gilbert signature guitar. So what is this? This is not a typical superstrat. Is this a secret Les Paul? Is the slide magnet actually useful? I'm going to talk about the first impressions, the overall thoughts, how it sounds, how it plays, the quality of the electronics, and at the end I'll give a full mix demo of the guitar. Before I do, I just have to say that I'm not sponsored by any of the brands shown in this video. I'm also not some amazing guitar virtuoso, I can't play like Paul. I'm not in some incredible touring band or anything, I'm just an online musician guy who clearly likes guitars. So let's jump right in. What were the first impressions of this? And I gotta say, wow, this is a very impressive looking guitar. It's in my favorite color scheme, the black with the gold, because it's the same colors as my cat. And one thing that was interesting is that while it is, I'd say it's a pretty large guitar, it's not as outrageously big as I thought it was gonna be. It's more like long-wise than it is width-wise. But it's not huge like the Schecter E7 I have, like that Explorer shape. It's not like a flying V where it has the point sticking out. So it's actually pretty manageable. It is a little longer from top to bottom than a Superstrat by like an inch or so. And so because of that, if you're going to be putting this into a gig bag, it came with a gig bag, and I put a typical Superstrat, one of my RGs in it, and there was like the inch or two clearance when I did that. So if you have an existing gig bag, or you have a gig bag already that you're going to use, make sure it can fit the tip of this. This headstock is just as big as the 7-string, like 7 in a Lion headstocks. So it's not small by any means. One odd thing is that when I got it, the pick guards, you know, when you get a new guitar with a pick guard, it has the plastic kind of film on it. On this guitar, it had 2 layers of plastic film. So I don't know if that's the new standard or if just that factory in particular does it or what, but it was a bit of a surprise. Not the end of the world, but kind of weird. And then I also noticed the bottom strap. It's in a bit of a weird position. I guess there's not really a great place to put this. It's like down here. The output jack is in a pretty normal place, but this, it works. It doesn't fall off the strap. All right, so let's talk about the playability and the feel now. What's the playing experience when using this guitar? Well, as I mentioned, it's not huge like an Explorer Flying V, so you don't have to worry about the tips bumping or anything like that. And you can sit with it pretty normally too, like a typical Superstrat or Strat. But unlike a typical Superstrat, like Paul's older signature models, this neck is much bigger, much thicker. This feels like the thickest neck I have. And the surprising thing with that is it still feels plenty playable. I do prefer the Ibanez, the thin necks, as you can see in the background. So it came as a surprise. Well, first when feeling it, I kind of knew what I was getting into. I had heard these necks were thicker. But then when playing it, it didn't feel awful. It's not like, how do I describe it? It's not like the Wizard 3 neck with more shoulder, and it's not completely round either. It's somewhere in between, and it's just, I feel like it's just the right profile for a thick neck like this, that you can still shred on it, but you can also do the bends if you want to, like old school bends. And so going up the neck, even though it has that 24 3/4 inch scale length, unlike single cuts with this scale length and the 2 humbucker setup, it's fairly easy to get to the 22nd fret. You can see these cutaways are fantastic. Of course, the upper horn doesn't impede you. And then the lower horn, they scooped away this right here. But what's weird is if you look at the back, it is a set neck, but it's mimicking like a bolt-on. It's got this heel they put in right there. So your hand, if you're not like stretching or anything, it just goes up to here. And then of course you can reach like that. But you can see my thumb is like hooked around right there. So that's a good thing to keep in mind if you're considering this. Of course, the gloss finish neck, it is what it is. This isn't like a super fast modern Superstrat. It is more kind of a classic spec'd instrument. You can almost forgive that it's a gloss finish neck. Like, okay, I'm getting a guitar like this. I've seen the specs. I've done my research on it. It's not trying to be a super shredder in disguise. It is like thick. Maybe it helps with the tone. Who knows? I haven't done any silence experiments on it. But if you're comparing it to like a more classic single cut, like say a Les Paul, this does differ because It does have that, there it is, the tune-o-matic style bridge, but it is a bit more into the body. It is recessed in, so you can see it's not sticking up super high off the body. You do have the bridge pickup coming up just a bit. Again, the bridge isn't like super high up. So that also means the neck, you can see there's not really an angle like this way, like you'd see on the classic style single cut. It is more of a straight with the body, like you'd see on, say, a Strat. So because the neck is hardly angled at all and the fret axis is pretty good, even though the neck is thicker, I do still feel fairly at home playing this, coming from a super strat to something like this. Like, okay, at least like the body and the neck, they're aligned how I'm typically expecting it to be. Of course, the scale length is different and all that. There's no denying that. And the bridge, it is the tune-o-matic. It's not a hipshot or a Floyd style or anything like that. It doesn't take too long to get used to if you are used to playing those other bridges, but it will feel like the tune-o-matic. And surprisingly or unsurprisingly, the balance on this is actually pretty good. Of course, you can sit with it in the standard style like this and it doesn't really fall. It's not going to fall backwards or forwards or anything. Sitting with it classical style, it isn't really that fun just because this shape is weird. It is technically possible, but then also because the bridge and stuff are so far forward, I don't know. It's a bit weird. I wouldn't really recommend doing that. And then playing standing up, of course, because of this upper horn right here, it is pretty nicely balanced. But what I did notice when playing standing up is because the body comes out longer, at least the way it was hanging off my strap at the height I had it at, the forearm carve was kind of too far back. My forearm was getting more the edge here. So it was, I wouldn't say it's uncomfortable, but it wasn't my absolute favorite. Like I could probably get through a show or a practice session with it just fine. But I definitely notice it every now and then when I was performing the demo song at the end or whenever I was practicing playing with it standing up. So if you really hate more the blocky feel and you tend to have your guitars like medium or low height, just keep that in mind right there. Now the tuning stability on this thing, these are non-locking tuners, just regular old tuners. The stability is okay. It's kind of mediocre. It's fine. It's like the typical fixed bridge experience. Every now and then you have to tune up the G string. Every now and then you have to check your tuning. Okay, did something go sharp or flat? If you've been doing a lot of bends or the string's relatively new. Just typical stuff. It's not horrible. It's not going to instantly jump out of tune. You can definitely practice, play a few songs, record with it, but just check up on the tuning every now and then. Now the frets, of course, because I'm used to the more modern super strats, the frets, they're smaller. They're not made of stainless steel. So it did take a little bit of getting used to because they're not as tall and all that, but it's also not horrible. I'm actually surprised at how easy it was to play this, how playable it was. So if you're on the fence and you're worried about the fret wire, the height, the material, it's fine. And so also, as you saw in the beginning, the slide magnet really works. It really sticks on there. So that's pretty cool. If you do a lot of slide stuff, it does take a bit of finessing to do it as quick as Paul does. You see in his live stuff, he's got the magnet there and he's quickly like putting it on, taking it off. I can't really do it that well. My finger always gets stuck in the slide and then it's like, oh no, especially in the heat of the moment when you're all sweating and like hot and stuff like that. It kind of like sticks in a bit. Like it's a bit awkward. Like when you're cold and you're just chilling and whatever, you can do it on and off pretty easily. But I find in the heat of the moment, I do kind of get hung up on that. So that would take more practice, at least for me anyway. Okay, so now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the quality and the controls, because the country of origin of this guitar, this is made in China. So it's not made in South Korea, it's not made in Indonesia, it's not made in Japan, like a lot of Ibanez guitars we think about. And so maybe it's just this guitar in particular. Maybe I got lucky, but with this guitar, I haven't experienced any sharp fret edges or anything like that. Nothing is really out of order. There's no egregious paint flaws. There's no scratches or dings or anything. And all the strings are aligned on the neck on the fretboard properly, which is more than I can say for the made in Japan RGs I've gotten. I've had problems with some of those in the past. Some of them I've had to sell, I've tried to fix. Other RGs, there's various levels of prestige finish they put on the back of the neck, which of course this is the gloss neck, so that doesn't matter here, that's irrelevant. But also with other RGs, some of my prestige RGs, even the neck pickup, the wiring with that was shoddy. I have what's the number? It's a 5170B. The basswood with the Fishmans, the neck pickup in that actually cut out. I still need to rewire that. It's been on my to-do list forever. But with this, everything has been solid, just fine. It plays really well. The strings are aligned. Again, it's possible I got lucky, got with a good one. I haven't been scouring the internet and checking every single model of the Fireman, so let me know down in the comments if you've had a different experience. But everything's been good with this. The switch is where is it? There it is. The switch is nice and tight and all that. It doesn't feel like it's gonna come loose. Of course, time will tell, but the wiring has been solid. I also have the made in Mexico, the Fender, the Meteora, that Silverburst one. The neck pickup in that also cut out. So far this is faring better than made in Japan and made in Mexico. But yeah, the components have been pretty solid. I mentioned the switch. One weird thing about the switch is it is like up and down like this, but of course we play guitar kind of at an angle here. So if you're trying to switch it really quick, it's slightly not ergonomic. It is a bit weird. You just have to get used to it going up and down this way instead of following the path of your fingers like a blade switch would. So the potentiometers, they're fine. They're not too tight. They're not too loose. They've got just the right amount of resistance. And because it's the Paul Gilbert setup, he's got the tone knob closer to the bridge and then the volume knob down here. So you can just like let your arm down and just adjust it like that real quick. So that's pretty nice. That actually inspired me a long time ago to modify my RG655. In 2013, I took out the tone knob. I put the volume knob down on the bottom just to have it like Paul. So yeah, overall, I have to say I'm pleasantly surprised with the quality of this guitar. You can feel the body wood is maybe a bit lighter than it would be, probably because they didn't use like super high quality wood there, but it's not really neck heavy by any means. It's not neck heavy. It's not too light, but it's kind of nice that it's not a solid brick, because a guitar this big, you could see if they used just the most dense wood, it might be heavy. So if you like super heavy guitars, I don't know, just check the weight measurements before you buy, you know, like Sweetwater and stuff. Not sponsored, like Sweetwater and stuff. They put the weight with the pictures and all that. All right, so let's demonstrate the sound of this. It has the typical kind of Les Paul passive humbucker sound, kind of. I'll run through some tones for you real quick right here now. All right, so some overall thoughts on this guitar. First, I gotta say, this thing attracts dust like crazy. I took it out of the box of the gig bag. I put it down, literally 30 seconds. I turn around, this stupid thing's covered in dust. And then whenever I'm like, it's out and I'm playing it, it just attracts dust. I have to wipe it off. Pretty much between takes. I have to wipe off the dust more than I have to tune it. It is what it is, I guess. It's a gloss black guitar. What do you expect? It's just one of those things. Besides being covered in dust, though, you do feel pretty cool playing this thing. I mean, look at it. It's wild. You know, it has the guitar design language. It has the upper horn, the lower horn, the two humbuckers, all that. But I think, at least for me anyway, and of course looks and stuff are subjective, but just the black with the binding and then the gold hardware, I do feel pretty cool, and the block inlays. I'm a fan. And maybe it's just me, maybe I just like the guitar, there's positive sentiment around it, but when I'm like sitting down with it and playing it and looking down, you can kind of see the binding, of course on the neck obviously, but on the upper horn too, because it comes up, it kind of catches your eye. Maybe I'm just thinking about it as I play, who knows. Of course, speaking of that upper horn, because I'm more used to like the RGs, the superstrats, it does like angle up instead of curving like the typical upper horn does. So it is kind of weird that it comes up to your body a bit more. So if you don't like it, not like touching you, not pressing against you too much, but you will feel it. So if you don't really like that, that actually might be really annoying for you. That might be a non-starter even, because of course you can modify other things like the tuners. You can change out, put in locking tuners if you want, if you like them. If you don't like them, that's fine. You know, these are tools for the trade. These are pieces of hardware that we use to craft songs. You got to pick what works best for you. But you can't really modify the horn. At least you better not. But yeah, it's not terrible. And you can see there's a deep belly cut right here. So it doesn't exactly impede playing. But it is also kind of odd because when playing standing up, I have to have the strap low enough so the horn is where I guess my body expects it, where it feels right to have. But then that does lower the guitar. I feel like it lowers the guitar a bit more than with my super strats. So then there's the thing I mentioned earlier with the forearm cut. It isn't really quite in the right place for where I have the guitar. You know, everyone's body is slightly different, so maybe you won't have this problem. Maybe you have your guitars higher up and making more contact with you by default anyway. But it's these little things that if you're just playing it once, if you're just getting the guitar just for a review to say, okay, I've played this guitar for 10 minutes, it's awesome, good night everyone, then that's not going to matter too much. But if you get this guitar to actually make songs, to make music, and you're going to have to work with this thing for hours on end, for days on end, months on end, maybe even years on end, these things add up, you know, like little things like maybe you don't prefer the tune-o-matic bridge, so then this part touching against your palm is always going to be really annoying for you. Maybe the horn curving a certain way might be really annoying for you. These are things to consider. And if you've played a few guitars, I guess, and you kind of start to get a feel for what you like and dislike, I'd say that's pretty important to think about, pretty important to listen to what feels right. So that plus the tuning stability being not terrible, not bad, but just like decent, it's like okay, that would make me think twice before bringing this guitar to some kind of either like streaming live performance or a live show or a long practice session where you have to stand up. I know you can sit down for those sometimes, but anywhere where I'm going to be standing up and playing and performing continuously, I might think twice. Of course, it's not the end of the world. I do have a tuning pedal after every song or every other song I can tune. The feel of the edge of the body, it's not the worst. You can get used to it. You do notice it every now and then, but you could work with it. So if you like the shape of the guitar, you think it's cool, and it does play pretty well. The thick neck is nice. It's nice and comfortable, and it does sound pretty good. So I wouldn't exactly say no, I wouldn't play it live or anything like that. I've obviously recorded with it because the demo song's coming up next, but all those things and the shorter scale length, it's not the 25.5-inch scale length, the 24 3/4 scale length. It is kind of comfortable. The stretches aren't as bad. So if you're doing stretches and stuff, this is pretty nice. And the shred is definitely possible. It's not a super thin wizard neck, but it's not by any means a slow playing neck. You can play slow on it, but you can also play pretty fast. There are some things that would give me pause for using it for long periods of time during any particular day. But I'd say that's not enough to make me not want to pick up the guitar. It's pretty fun. It looks pretty fun. It looks cool. You feel cool playing it. It sounds pretty good. And if the 2-humbucker 3-way switch thing is for you and you don't mind the gloss neck and all that, and you can work with 22 frets, I'd say, yeah, I do recommend this guitar. It's pretty cool. What would be some competitors with this guitar? Pretty much anything with the 2 humbuckers and the shorter scale length like that would basically be in the realm of competing. Maybe not stuff with active pickups, because active pickups, they do have a bit of a different sound, you know, actives versus passives. We could talk about that for ages. It's been spoken to death about. This definitely can do metal though. So alternatives to this, yeah, anything with that set neck. It does kind of get away from the single cuts because it has this upper horn. So fret access is pretty nice. So wrapping this up, in conclusion, pretty cool guitar, sounds pretty good. I'm a huge fan of Paul Gilbert. I'm not disappointed with this guitar. So if you're thinking about it, and it's within your budget, I'd say go for it. So anyway, those are my thoughts. This was the review on the Ibanez FRM350, the Fireman. Did I miss anything? Did I leave anything out? Be sure to let me know or ask questions down in the comments below. You know, this is YouTube, so I have to say the YouTube things. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share the video, print out every frame and mail it. And as always, peace.